Oh, hey, good morning, everybody. Hi, this is Paul, and this is the Wholesale Real Estate Investing Show. This is number 259 on this new up day AM here on May 16th, 2016. Negotiation new up day. That's right. And I'm here hanging out in chilly Lake Tahoe in my back room bar area where I don't have heat. So it's probably actually at least just as cold, if not colder, in here right now than it is outside. And we had a little sprinkle yesterday, not a whole lot, just a little bit, enough to put a little bit of water, some small puddles, one in the bottom of the wheelbarrow there. And I noticed this morning when I went to take out the trash that there was a very, very thin layer of ice on that water. Yeah, so it's a little chilly today. So welcome. If you don't mind, let me have a sip of my warm coffee here. And we'll get started here on today's show. To be honored 24 centuries after death. What the heck is that all about? Well, as you know, on New Op Day, we study the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is our study guide, our training manual, our Bible, so to speak, in dealing with our relationships in real estate. Because as we always say, real estate equals relationships. The people that enter into your circle, your sphere of influence, your team members, your employees, your professional team members, your attorneys and your accountants and your real estate agents, et cetera, and so on like that, your buyers, and then all of the sellers that you're going to have to deal with, all these people who come into your life. You follow the methods of how to win friends and influence people, you will make and build meaningful, lasting, and extremely profitable relationships. That's why we have these. That's why we hold these hangouts every New Op Day, and that's why we study this book. And when we get to the end of this book, what do? We go back to the beginning and we start it over again, because that's just that powerful. This is not a book that you read one time, put it away, and say, "Oh yeah, I read that book once." It's like saying, you know what? Oh yeah, I ate once. I don't need to eat again. I'm fine. I'm good for the rest of my life here. I ate one time. That's all, and that's the way these kinds of books are. You read this book one time, you put it up on the shelf. 10 years later, 5 years later, whatever it is, somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, you ever read that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I read that book. Yeah, about 5 years ago, I read that book." And they're like, "You know what? Really, you should go read it again." "Oh yeah, why? Why should I read it again? I've already read it once." "Well, they rewrote the whole book. It's a completely different book now." "Oh yeah, really? I remember I liked it. Maybe I should read it again." You go off and read the book, something like that, and it's going to be a completely different book. It won't be anything what you remember. It's a whole new book. And you know what? You get to the end of reading this book one time, take 1 month off, turn around and read it again, and guess what? It's a whole new book. Why is it a whole new book? Because you are a whole new person. You see things this time that you didn't see before. There's something within, between the lines, so to speak, that wasn't there when you first read through it. You read what was on the lines only. The second time you read through it, now you're seeing a little bit between some of those lines. Third time you read through it, you're seeing through different segments of the lines. The fourth time you read through it, you go, "Wow, I never even don't even remember reading that part." Because maybe sometimes when you're reading, your mind is really kind of somewhere else, and you're just kind of skimming through without it really taking place. That's how it works. That's how this peanut up here works. So that's why this is not just a one-time read. This is a study book. Okay. This is like going to school right here. This is a textbook that you need to read over and over and learn and study. So, I mean, how many of your textbooks that you read do you remember anything about what was in there? You know, other than Abe Lincoln was the president who freed the slaves. Anyway, so to be honored 24 centuries after death, who are we talking about here? We're talking about Socrates, right? And we started this 2 weeks ago. I have to apologize. Last week, I traveled from Phoenix here to Lake Tahoe, and along the way, for whatever some reason, my computer, I think it's time for me to get a new one. It finally decided that it needed to go into the shop. And so as soon as I got here to town on Sunday, I took it straight into the shop, and I didn't have my computer on Monday, so last new update, so I could not hold the Hangout, and I apologize for that. So 2 new op days ago, we started this chapter, but we never did get to finish it. But I just want to give you a really quick overview of what the secret of Socrates is. This is chapter 5 in part 3 of the book, which is, oh gosh, what's it called again? How to Win People to Your Way of Thinking. If you're negotiating for real estate, do you think winning people to your way of thinking would be a positive trait to have? I think so. So the secret of Socrates basically is get the other person saying yes, yes at the outset. Keep your opponent, if possible, from ever saying no. That's it. I mean, that's the secret right there. We went through some of this yesterday, 2 weeks ago, or 2 sessions ago. Sorry about that. Lousy word there. But I'm going to go and just talk about a couple of the example stories that he gives in here, because the stories are so great in this book. It's really, they really drive home the concept here that he's delivering. So first of all, though, I want to tell you that one thing that we did cover, I want to reiterate on, is that the psychological patterns are very clear when a person says no and really means it. You know, he or she is doing far more than using or than saying a word of 2 letters. The entire organism, glandular, nervous, muscular, yeah, the entire organism, the glandular, the nervous, the muscular systems gather itself together into a condition of rejection. There's usually what is that? Minute, but sometimes in observable degree, a physical withdrawal or readiness for withdrawal. The whole neuromuscular system, in short, sets itself on guard against acceptance. When, to the contrary, a person who says yes, none of the withdrawal activities takes place. The organism is in a forward-moving, accepting, open attitude. Hence, the more yeses we can get at the very outset, the more yeses we can at the very outset induce, the more likely we are to succeed in capturing the attention for our ultimate purpose. So that's it for our ultimate proposal. So see, that's the power behind yes. The word no has huge power too, obviously. That's what he's pointing out here. The word no, I mean, the whole physical body gets involved behind the word no when somebody really means no in what they're saying. They physically begin to shut down against any acceptance whatsoever that you might be willing to propose to them. And you can see it. You can see people that just, no, I mean, just that little, whatever it is, the whole system. So obviously the power of yes does the exact opposite thing. The whole system is now, like he says, in that forward moving, accepting attitude that's going to be open to whatever proposal you have. And then there's a much more willingness there that you're going to continue to get that final and ultimate yes that you're looking for. And that's what the power behind this is. So let's see here, get a student. Where's the little story I was going to go to here? Okay, so Oh, okay. He talks about what is it out here? Okay, a man goes to a bank to open an account. That's what it was, and I give him our usual forms to fill out. Some of the questions he answered willingly, but there were others he flatly refused to answer. He says, before I began the study of human relations, I would have told this prospective depositor that if he refused to give the bank this information, we would have to refuse to accept his account. He says, I'm ashamed of that now, and I'm guilty of doing that very thing in the past. He says, naturally, an ultimatum like that, made himself feel good by giving it, but made the other person, he said, I had shown this other person who was a boss that the bank's rules and regulations, couldn't be flouted. But at the same sort of, attitude didn't give that person a feeling of welcome and importance. And the man who had walked in to give us his patronage would be walking right out the door. So he says, I resolved in this morning to use a little more sense. I resolved not to talk about what the bank wanted, but about what the customer wanted. And above all else, I was determined to get him saying yes, yes from the very start. So I agreed with him. I told him that the information he refused to give was not absolutely necessary. However, I said, suppose you have money in the bank at the time of your death. Would you like to have the bank transfer it to your next of kin who is entitled to it according to law? Yes, of course, he says. Do you think, I continued, that it would be a good idea to give us the name of your next of kin so that in the event of your death, we could carry out your wishes without error or delay? Well, yes, again, he says, right? The young man's attitude softened and changed when he realized that we weren't taking his information for our sake, but for his sake. Before leaving the bank, this young man not only gave me a complete information about himself, but he opened, at my suggestion, a trust account, naming his mother as the beneficiary for his account, and he gladly answered all the questions concerning his mother also. I found that by getting him to say yes from the very outset, he forgot the issue at stake and was happy to do all the things that I suggested. That's the power behind it right there. Just to getting him to say yes, opposed to, starting off by telling him that, no, you're wrong, this is how it is, it's our way or the highway kind of a thing. Okay, well, if it's your way or the highway, I guess I'll choose the highway then. But by showing him that a couple of things were important to him in giving the bank this information, now all of a sudden, the guy's opening up, he's willing to give this information out. So the next one here, he starts to talk about a sales representative for the Washington Electric Company. He has this story to tell. He says, there was a man in my territory that our company was most eager to sell. My predecessor had called on him for 10 years without selling anything. When I took over the territory, I called steadily for 3 years without getting an order. Finally, after 3 years of calls and sales talk, I sold him a few motors. If these proved to be all right, in the order for several hundred more would follow. Such was my expectation. Sorry, I gotta put these on because the words are just a little too small in this light for me. Here we go. Now I can read this better. Okay, if these prove to be all right, for an order for several hundred more would follow. Such was my expectation, right? He says, I knew they would be all right. So when I called 3 weeks later, I was in high spirits. The chief engineer greeted me with this shocking announcement. Allison, I can't buy the remainder of the motors from you. Why? I asked in amazement. Why? Because your motors are too hot. I can't put my hand on them. I knew it wouldn't do any good to argue. I had tried that sort of thing too long. So I thought of getting the yes, yes response. Well, now look, Mr. Smith, I said, I agree with you that 100%. If those motors are running too hot, you ought not to buy any more of them. You must have motors that won't run any hotter than standards set by the National Electric Manufacturers Association. Isn't that so? He agreed it was. I had gotten my first yes. The Electric Manufacturers Association regulations say that it is that a properly designed motor may have a temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit above room temperature. Is that correct? Yes, he agreed. That's quite correct. But your motors are much hotter. I didn't argue with him. I merely asked, how hot is the mill room? Oh, he said about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, I replied, if the mill room is 75 degrees and you add 72 to that, it makes a total of 147 degrees Fahrenheit. Wouldn't you scald your hand if you held it under a spigot of hot water of 147 degrees Fahrenheit? Again, he had to say yes. Well, I suggested, wouldn't it be a good idea to keep your hands off those motors? Well, I guess you're right, he admitted. He continued to chat for a while. Then he called his secretary and lined up approximately $35,000 worth of business for the ensuing month. So it said it took me years and cost me countless of thousands of dollars in lost business before I finally learned that it doesn't pay to argue, that it is much more profitable and more interesting to look at things from the other person's viewpoint and try to get that person saying yes, yes. Another story here, he talks about Eddie Snow, who sponsors our courses in Oakland, California. Tells me he became a good customer of a shop because the proprietor got him to say yes, yes. Eddie had become interested in bow hunting and had spent considerable money when purchasing equipment and supplies from a local bow store. When his brother was visiting, he wanted to rent a bow from him from this store. The clerk told him that they didn't rent bows, so Eddie phoned another store. Eddie described what happened. A very pleasant man answered the phone. His response to my question for rental was completely different from the other place. He said he was sorry, but they no longer rented bows because they couldn't afford to do so. He then asked me if I had rented before. I replied, yes, several years ago. He reminded me that I probably paid $25 to $30 for the rental. I said, yes, again. He then asked if I was the kind of person who liked to save money. Naturally, I said yes. He went on to explain that they had bow sets with all the necessary equipment on sale for $34.95. I could buy a complete set for only $4.95 more than I could rent one. He explained that is why they had discontinued renting them. Did I think that was reasonable? My yes response led to a purchase of the set. And when I picked it up, I purchased several more items at the shop and have since become a regular customer. You see, the guy could have just said, no, we don't rent bows, sorry. Okay, thanks, bye. But instead, a little bit of explanation, showing the person, hey, look, here's why we don't rent the bows anymore, because it's just not cost effective for us. This isn't a matter of fact, you're the kind of person that likes to save money, right? Of course you are. Right. Well, here you go. For $5 more, you can buy the damn bow, right? You used it twice. Look at how much money you've saved. There you go. Even if it sits on your shelf till next year, you only use it once a year. But this time next year, it's paid for itself and saved you, 75% on another rental. That's pretty good. What Socrates was known as the gadfly of Athens was one of the greatest philosophers ever known. He did something that only a handful of men in all of history have been able to do. He sharply changed the whole course of human thought, and now, 24 centuries after his death, he is honored as one of the wisest persuaders who ever influenced this wrangling world. His method? Well, did he tell people they were wrong? Oh no, not Socrates. He was far too adroit for that. His whole technique was called the Socratic method, was based upon getting yes, yes response. He asked questions with which his opponent would have to agree. He kept on winning one admission after another until he had an armful of yeses. He kept on asking questions until finally, almost without realizing it, his opponents found themselves embracing a conclusion they would have bitterly denied a few moments prior. So the next time that you're tempted to tell someone that he or she is wrong, remember the Socratic method. and ask a gentle question, a question that will get a yes, yes response. Huge, huge difference. He says the Chinese have a proverb, pregnant with the old age, a proverb pregnant with age-old wisdom of the Orient. He who treads softly goes far. By not telling people, no, you're wrong, that's not how it's done, it's our way or the highway. Again, using some of the other methods in this book, put yourself in their shoes, look at it from their side of the fence, and ask a softly, subtle question that's going to get them, that they pretty much have to say yes to. It's a skill that you probably don't have right now. I'm not very good at it myself as of yet, but it is a skill that is learnable. That's the beautiful thing. All skills of success are learnable. You can learn any skill that you need to make yourself more successful. The principles in this book are all skills of success, and you can learn them all. Very easy. All you have to do is practice. Do them over and over again. Repetition is the mother of learning, and the only way that you, the only way that you get better at anything is by practicing. But remember this one thing, practice does not make perfect, because take this for instance, all right? You want to learn how to play golf, right? You've got a crappy golf swing, and you go out there every weekend, you know, every day to the driving range, get a bucket of balls, practice your golf swing, and you're practicing the same crappy golf swing over and over and over again. Is it ever going to get any better? No. Is it ever going to be a great golf swing? No. Perfect practice makes perfect. You get somebody on there showing you the right way to make that golf swing, and you start practicing the golf swing the right way, and the next thing you know, you're smacking the heck out of that thing, and it's that perfect practice that makes perfect, not just random practice. Study this book. Practice these methods. This is the perfect way to do it. Practice perfect and make perfect, and create good repetition habits of doing things that win friends and influence people, do not make enemies and, you know, offend people. It's a huge, huge plus in your life, in your business, in everything that you do. It's just going to make everything better for you. So with that, everybody, hey, we're getting a little bit close to the final hour, and I just want to say thank you all for being here. It's great to see those of you who showed up. It's a good time every week, every session that we come here on this New Op Day. This book is amazing, and I just want to show you that we're going to get into chapter 6 of part 3, which is the safety valve in handling complaints. Okay. Do people complain? Do people complain? People complain about everything all the time, and they're going to complain about whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. Trust me, I can guarantee you that. They will complain about their situation. They'll complain about, you know, whose fault it is. It's not their fault. They'll complain about, you know, why are, you know, they'll complain that you're offering not enough money. They'll complain about everything that they can possibly complain of. So do you think having a safety valve in handling complaints might be a good idea? I think it might be a good idea. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thanks once again. Thanks for showing up here. And if you're interested in who we are sellhousearizona.com. That's our website. You can email us at propertynoodlers.com. If you want to find out about our system, how this operates, bring it to your city or town, or if you're in Phoenix, Arizona, maybe think about joining our team. And you can watch 258 of these videos on YouTube at the Paul and John Wholesale. Just YouTube Paul and John Wholesale and select from 250 videos loaded with information that you're just going to love, that's going to help you be successful in wholesale real estate. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you back here on Wisdom Wednesday.